It's not the educational content. It's not the professional content that does well. It's the ones where I'm sharing my story. It's the ones where I let go of that professionalism. It's the ones where maybe I'm dancing and being silly, or even if I'm not, it's me like, speaking in front of an audience or something, but it's about me and the comments and the DMs and everything that people that my audience is telling me is that they resonate with me as a person. They've connected with me as a person.
Welcome to Who Cares About My Story, the podcast on how sharing your personal brand story can impact your business. We will explore the perks and also the behind the scenes challenges of figuring out what to share. I'm your host, Reme Mancera, a personal brand strategist who loves finding the story connectors that illustrate the benefits of what you offer. And by the way, you don't need a Hollywood style for that. In case you ever wonder, remember, your story is relevant and worth telling. Hey everyone, today we have a very special episode. Our guest is Nancy Diaz, an international therapist and speaker with a specialization in trauma-informed therapy for women of color and daughters of immigrants. She's also the founder of the Global Citizen Therapy podcast, where she advocates for social justice, mental health access, and the importance of self-care. During our conversation, she told us about her unconventional path into the therapy field, from intending to launch her own nonprofit to accidentally discovering her passion for therapy. Nancy gets real about how sharing her own story has played an important role in her own healing journey, taking the power back after being silenced by society's norms and other people's expectations. Nancy also explains how she uses stories to decolonize and destigmatize therapy. The key, she really understands her audience, so she picks the pieces of her personal story that hit home and resonate with them the most. So, if you're curious about Nancy's unique therapy approach and the power of storytelling in her business, you don't want to miss this episode. Now, let's dive in. Hello. Thanks, Nancy, for being here. Welcome to Who Cares About My Story podcast. I'm so excited to have this conversation and so grateful that you accepted to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's such an honor to be one of the first guests on this really exciting podcast. Very, very excited for this conversation today.
Thank you. So, can you please tell us what do you do?
Yeah, of course. So my name is Nancy Diaz, and I am a trauma-informed therapist, speaker, podcast host, and writer. And I specialize in working with women of color who are daughters of immigrants.
Mm. So, how did you get here? What's your story?
So my story actually started a long time ago, and it actually started with me just volunteering and loving to help people. I've always loved to help people. And I actually decided when I started college, I was looking at the different options and I said, okay, what's a way that I can help people? And I decided, okay, I will get a bachelor's degree in nonprofit management. I got that degree thinking that I would one day start my own nonprofit so that I could help people. I quickly realized that that was not going to be the path for me because I realized that those people do not have any time off and they're burnt out to the max. And so I decided to get a master's degree in social work. And that story is a funny one because I decided the day before the master's degree program started that I was going to get a master's degree because I had just gotten a job at the university. And so I thought, wow, okay. I mean, it'd be a waste not to get a master's degree. I'm so burned out. I'm so tired. I don't want to get another degree, but now that I have this job and they will pay for it, I think I should get a master's degree. So I just chose like randomly, like, well, I've always liked to help people. I will just get a master's in social work. And so I went in there, I sat down, and as soon as I sat down and the instructor started talking about becoming a therapist, I was like, oh my God, what did I sign up for? I said, I didn't know that if you studied a master's in social work, you would be training to become a therapist. I was like, am I in the right place? And I look around and everyone else is like, yeah, they've got the same syllabus, Master of Social Work. And I was like, okay, this is the right place. So that's what led me to actually become a therapist. It was partly accidental, partly I say, destined to become reality because I've always liked helping people. And I sat through the entire class and I was like, I wanted to do something where I could have an impact, where I could give back, where I could help my community. I had never thought about becoming a therapist, but maybe this is what's supposed to happen. So fast forward a few years later, and COVID hit, and I decided like, okay, this is the time that I start my private practice. And it took quite a few trial and error kind of stages, but I finally found the calling of becoming a therapist for women of color who are daughters of immigrants because I saw that there was a gap. And I realized, like, wow, okay, so this is kind of where I was supposed to end up. It may have taken a few different twists and turns and thinking that I was going to do something totally different a few times. But here I am, and this is what feels 100% right. And I'm so passionate. And you can probably tell anytime that I talk about these topics that I love talking about the different issues and the themes and the patterns that I notice when working with women of color, when working with daughters of immigrants, all the different cultural nuances and all the things that make us very unique, all our strengths. Well, of course, there's challenges, but all of our strengths and the beautiful, rich cultural diversity that makes us who we are. I love all of it. And so this is who I love working with. And so as a speaker, I speak on different topics that affect daughters of immigrants. On my podcast, the Global Citizen Therapy Podcast, I talk about topics that affect daughters of immigrants as well from a mental health perspective. And I just love what I do and my writing and my speaking, whatever it is, I just am so passionate about this. And so that's a bit about my story. That's kind of it's taken a bit to get here, but it's definitely turned into a beautiful story.
Thank you for sharing. And I love how, yeah, that trial and errors I have seen so many times with clients and other people. Like it seems like you don't know where are you going, but then when you look back, it's like there is this common thread and there is something that, yeah, you mean you are where you mean to be and
Yeah.
everything is connected. But at the beginning you are like just trying and looking for your way
Yeah.
until you find it. So yeah, and it's so nice every time that I have heard you talking about your topic. So I check your content. Yeah, you can see how these topics lighten you up just when
Yes.
you talk about that. So thank
Mhm.
you for sharing. Um, can you please tell us about how telling your story has impacted your business?
Yeah, definitely. So I actually learned in such an interesting way, and this is going to speak definitely more to the trials and the errors that I committed before actually getting to this place where I am actually able to confidently and very comfortably share parts of my story because I know that they will help people and they will help them feel seen, heard, validated. That's what I say, is the purpose of my podcast. And the purpose of everything I do is to help women of color who are daughters of immigrants feel seen, heard, and validated. And I realized that through storytelling, it was such a powerful way of teaching. And so I actually learned this lesson back in 2020, the end of 2020. I had just started my podcast in October. And by I think November, December, I was done with it. And you know why? Because of imposter syndrome, because of that
Oh,
self-doubt, because of that inner critic saying, well, who are you to have this podcast? Like, what do you know? Who's going to want to listen to you, to your story? Like, what do you know? And there were all these doubts creeping in and telling me, like, just stop. What's the point? What's the point of it? And so for an entire year, I stopped. I didn't show up on social media. I didn't show up on the podcast. I just stopped. I saw my clients, but I thought like this is it. I think this is what I'm meant to do. The impact I'm going to have is maybe going to be limited and because I don't think that I'm anyone to really show up on social media and be talking about these topics. And no, it's not going to happen. And then a year later, that was when I actually decided, like, okay, I had been working with clients in private practice for about a year. I had seen at that point just randomly. So, because when I first started, my niche was very different. My niche was digital nomads. And so that entire year of imposter syndrome, I was working with different clients. I mean, clients come to me all different backgrounds and lifestyles and experiences, but there happened to be a few that were children of immigrant parents. And I just realized, like, wow, this feels so good, so right to be working with them, to be talking about these shared experiences. And there's so much that they don't have to say to me. And I just understand. And there's not as much education that needs to happen. I understand the immigrant experience, and I love kind of dissecting it and helping people understand that it's kind of shaped our worldviews in beautiful ways and sometimes painful ways. And I just realized, like, wow, this is something that I know something about. And it was then, almost a year later, it was December, a whole year had gone by, and I realized, like, this is who I want to specialize in working with. And when I really thought about it, I was like, yes, I can work with children of immigrants, and I can work with the men as well. And I said, but I just see that gender plays such a big role. I said, I actually want to work with women. And then I narrowed it even more. I said, yes, I've been working with people, of different races. I said, but I want to specialize in working with women of color, and actually be able to talk about the different issues that impact women of color as well. And so once I actually decided that, all of a sudden I felt so much more comfortable in being able to show up. And I decided, okay, well, here comes the rebrand, because now I have a totally different niche. And how am I going to tell people that I'm going from digital nomads to women of color who are daughters of immigrants? They're quite different. And so I thought, okay, it's gonna come down to telling my story, how I got there. And so the very first episode, after taking a year break and deciding, oh my God, I'm so embarrassed, but I'm gonna give this a shot again. I'm gonna show up again. All of a sudden, hey, a year later. And I said, here's the story about imposter syndrome. Here's the story of how I got to where I'm at now, how I'm actually able to show up confidently now, how I struggled with imposter syndrome and now coming out on the other side of that. And I'm going to be sharing with you all my stories. And this podcast is going to be so different, because that was the other thing. The imposter syndrome, a lot of it came from me thinking that I need to be this professional, this expert, this I know, this I'm right 100% of the time. I am this blank slate as a therapist. I'm just going to share knowledge, 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 information, information, information. And you're not going to know anything about my personal life, because that's what I was trained in grad school that therapists did, that's how they were supposed to show up. That in therapy sessions, we always had to be this blank slate. Clients could know nothing about us, and we were just there to help them. We were there to hear their story, but never to share or reveal anything about us. So when it came to social media, to the podcast, I was unsure. I was like, okay, I guess the podcast, I guess social media needs to be exactly like that as well. And just me sharing information and giving people that knowledge and that awareness. And so in this first episode, when I came back from that year-long imposter syndrome break, I decided to say, you know what, I'm actually realizing that my ancestors, my parents are Mexican, by the way. So my ancestors have been passing down information and knowledge for generations through storytelling. And so why am I trying to do something that doesn't fit with that doesn't align with that? And I said, there's been so much pushback on my end. Something hasn't felt right. And it's because I've been trying to fit and mold myself into this Western model of sharing information and passing down knowledge when it doesn't work for me. And so I said in that first podcast episode, where I told my story about how I had, been battling imposter syndrome, how I'd feel like I'd started to come out on the other side of it, and how I wanted to do things differently. And so I told them right there in the episode, from now on, we're going to do this podcast in a totally different way, because there are already generic mental health podcasts out there where you say, here's this disorder. We're going to be talking about the symptoms. Here's what you can do to help with this disorder, whatever it is. I said, I started the podcast in that kind of way, and that didn't feel right. I felt like I was again barreling toward burnout because I just thought, this seems repetitive. It seems boring. It seems so un-me. It seems inauthentic, whatever you want to call it. It just didn't fit. All of a sudden, I said, I'm going to teach through storytelling. I'm going to teach you, like, okay, if we're going to be talking about, for example, seasonal affective disorder, when I did an episode on that, and people enjoyed that episode because I gave a lot of information. But now, if I were to redo that episode, I'd share that my mother struggled with that, that I noticed that, yes, sharing the knowledge here, that it can be passed down, that it can be genetic. Okay, I've noticed that I struggle too when I'm in a cold and rainy place and there's no sun. And so I can share, and I'm still teaching, but I'm teaching through storytelling, through sharing my story, my family's stories. And it's beautiful. And so that's become a part of everything that I do, whether it's a speaking engagement, I'm giving a workshop, I'm with a client. I've started to open up with my clients as well sometimes. When I see that it can help them, I've started to let go of that thinking, that mentality of, no, they can't know anything about me. Oftentimes, our experiences are very similar. And sometimes these clients have no one in their lives that they can really relate to. And so sometimes it's just about sharing with them, like, oh, I struggle with this too. And they're like, oh, what did you do? And so again, teaching through storytelling, like, yeah, I used to be where you are. Okay, like, let's talk about this. And so it is very different. And it's not the way that I was trained to do therapy. It's not the way that I was trained to do anything. But I've realized, I'm decolonizing mental health. I'm decolonizing therapy. I'm destigmatizing therapy. I'm making it so that more people start to see therapists as real people, as, we are also human. We make mistakes. We struggle with the same things that everyone else struggles with. And I think that that's a beautiful thing. And I'm sorry that that was such a long answer, but clearly I
It
get
was so
excited.
beautiful. So thank you for everything. And you cover things that I wanted to ask you. So that's perfect. Yeah, several things and thoughts about that. Uh, Beautifully how you are using your story in several ways, because I have seen that in many people, like they are using insider services or when they communicate to teach, and so different ways of using the story, and how the connection that create is and I love that you bring the professionalism, because that's also something that sometimes people think that sharing their story will look less professional. And
Yeah.
by the way, you are building that bond with the audience that is otherwise will be really more difficult to get. So yeah.
Yeah.
And
Can I
also,
just share one thing
yeah,
quickly as well
please.
about the
Yeah.
professionalism piece? I actually didn't want to do the storytelling and show up authentically on social media and on the podcast because I thought, yeah, it's going to take away from people trusting me and liking me and all these things. But what I realized is that now people somehow buy into the brand, and I hate even using those terms, but they seem to just resonate with my content, and they seem to like me as a person and believe and trust in my brand even more because of that. And it's just been so apparent, especially this past year, and that I've created a lot of different content on social media, and some of it is educational, and some of it I'm just sharing about my personal life, about my wins, about things that are going well, or challenges that I've overcome, and now I'm here. And what's interesting is that, yes, I know a lot about mental health, a lot about these different topics, but it's not the educational content, it's not the professional content that does well. It's the ones where I'm sharing my story. It's the ones where I let go of that professionalism. It's the ones where maybe I'm dancing and being silly, or even if I'm not, it's me, like, speaking in front of an audience or something, but it's about me and the comments and the DMs and everything that people, that my audience is telling me, is that they resonate with me as a person. They've connected with me as a person. If all of a sudden I brought in other people, I would be able to see that shift. They'd be like, where is Nancy? Where did she go? We were kind of here for her, and so that's been really interesting. And I'm starting to own that and see that people are there for me. People might not even know the name of my brand or whatever, but they're like, "Oh, do you follow Nancy? Like she does this content and it's very relatable, you know." And that's what people say, like it's relatable, it resonates. Like I struggled with this too. Or thank you for sharing that. And sometimes, you know, a reel that might flop technically and might just get a few likes, but I will get a comment or a message in my DM saying, thank you for talking about that. It's so taboo and I feel so seen and I appreciate that you shared that. And for me, I'm like, I'm gonna keep going and it's gonna be worth it because yeah, that's my whole purpose is to help people like, oh wow, she's talking about these things. Like that's me. And that's kind of the whole goal with it. So I wanted to share that a bit as well. Sometimes when you let go of that professionalism, you let your guard down and you just show up as yourself, people will love it and they will flock to it. Because there's so many people just trying to hide behind a brand and it's this perfectly crafted image and people can tell that that's not real. So sometimes people want to see things that are just very real.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for sharing that because yeah, you are totally right. It's at the beginning, especially a lot of us have this feeling of you need to pretend to be someone else and show up as someone. I guess it's also related to the imposter syndrome that we have and need to face. But yeah, it's when you own your own way of telling things, your own way of working with your own approach of working. It's yeah, it's more valuable for your audience because you are really making a difference and sharing examples from a different place and creating content that is unique. Even if you are teaching, when you are including your stories, you are making it more richful and it's more easy to understand. So it's really valuable. And also, in my opinion, it provides also context about your journey and build that connection at the same time, but also giving this contrast. So you are someone memorable. You are not just another therapist. Even if someone else provides similar services, by you telling your story, by you sharing your own experiences, it's building a more richful context and it's easier to remember who you are and who you help.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I've now found another therapist that also specializes in daughters of immigrants. I was so excited to find her. I was like, oh, thank God I'm not the only one anymore. And yeah, so interesting. She also has a similar type of storytelling approach. And I love that because we're both sharing our stories and our stories are so different, different cultural
Mm,
backgrounds and different stories and experiences. And there's so many differences. And I think because we both share our stories, there is that clear difference. So I think
mm,
versus if we both didn't tell stories and we both were just very professional and just sharing educational content of these are things that daughters of immigrants struggle with and we were just giving facts and facts, there wouldn't be that difference. It'd be like,
mm,
well, I don't know who to go with. Like I could go with either one. Like they're both talking about the same thing. So it doesn't really matter. So yeah, differentiating yourself, I think it really helps with that.
absolutely. So I would like to ask you, have you ever worried about sharing too much? And how do you set the boundaries for your privacy?
I It's interesting that when you say set your boundaries for privacy, I've been letting go more and more of that. But I will just kind of say I do think that however you want to do it, whatever boundaries you want to set, totally valid. I know that some people, you know, if they have kids, they don't share photos or stories or their names of their kids. Some people don't share their locations. I've realized that as a community builder and an influencer now and I love to kind of go to local events and promote, you know, the beautiful events that I'm going to, you know, that are organized by other Latinos or other people of color, for example. And so now I've actually even started sharing like, hey, I'm going to be here, you know, on this Saturday at this time, come by. And at first I was like, whoa, this is kind of scary. Like I'm telling people where I'm gonna be. But I've also realized, you know what, this feels right for me, to be able to still share and promote events and say like I'm kind of endorsing this, I'm going to be there, and so again, because people are starting to like, know, and trust me, they're saying like, oh yeah, you're gonna be there. Okay, I want to go too. And I'm seeing that, that I'm having the influence, that I'm inspiring people to be like, yeah, I've never thought about like going to these events and supporting, Latino business owners. Like, I'm gonna go. And so I'm like, I think to me that's worth it. So yeah, but you have to kind of think hard about how much you want to share, as far as privacy. I think you definitely do. As far as, parts of my story, there are still there are a few parts of my story that I think about like, oh, I'm not ready to share this yet. I know that when I feel like I will be one day. And I think for me, it's just I'm going to continue doing my own work with my own therapist and work to get to a point where I can share this. For me, sharing my story has been a big part of my healing journey, in that I'm giving myself that power back. I've been silenced by society, by family members, by whoever it is, that have told me like you don't belong here, you don't deserve to have this space to share your story. And so there's a lot of power in me being able to share parts of my story. But that doesn't mean that I'm sharing every single thing yet. But there are things, for example, like I shared about my sexual orientation in an episode just a few months ago. And that was something that I'd been thinking, like, okay, I really want to do an episode on this. I'm not ready to talk about that yet. And I worked up to it, through therapy. I was like, okay, I think I'm getting to that point. I'm getting to that point. Okay, I think I'm ready now. So I think that's going to be my journey, is that the more work I do on myself, the more comfortable I'm going to feel. But who knows, there may be some parts of my story that never see the light of day, and that's okay too. But yeah, for me, I'm getting more and more comfortable with sharing everything. And I feel like it's also, I never want to give someone else that power of like, oh, if, because the bigger you become, there might be someone one day that says, like, I know this about you and I'm going to tell everyone. So I never want to give someone that power. So, and that's just my own, my own journey, my own belief around this. And everyone can kind of decide what boundaries they want to set and what they want to share and not share. But for me, I am one of those people that's very open. And so even this past season of the podcast is all about sex, sexuality, and sexual health. So I've opened up about my own dating and about like a whole bunch of other things, because I said, well, this season is not going to be any different from others. I said that I would teach through storytelling, and I'm going to do that, with a bit of humor and lightness, and especially when talking about heavy topics like sexual assault and that kind of thing, bringing in some of that. And that's what I think people have said that I do really well, is that I talk about heavy topics like trauma. I mean, I'm a trauma informed therapist, and yet I do videos of me dancing, and I bring some lightness to it, and some humor and things like that. And so people say that I do that really well. So I think I've kind of found a balance where I can still tell my story in a way that feels natural, that feels authentic, that feels good to me. And also, yeah, is still helping people feel seen and heard and validated. And so I've kind of found that beautiful place.
Wow, that's nice. And yeah, I love that you share, especially the evolution that you had, because sometimes with the stories it's like that. It's at the beginning you might share in a more superficial level the same story, but over the time you feel ready or you are interested in sharing it for some reason, so you go like in a deeper level, and you can, it's an evolution of the way every time that you share your story maybe you realize about a different angle of the lesson that you get from that moment.
Yeah.
So it's something like living is not something that you share in one way and it's like that for forever. It's just going to evolve as you evolve as a human.
Yeah, yeah. And I love that you're saying that, because I think that you do evolve as a human, but I'm also thinking like this isn't something that I was natural. I mean, in some ways I think I was naturally good at it, but in other ways, like I've gotten so much better over time. And now it's become something that I just do very naturally, that I don't have to think about like, oh, how can I how can I write this post or write this caption, because I think especially when we have a bit of that imposter syndrome and we think, oh, I need to sound very professional, or I need to sound like I'm an expert, or I need to take what I learned about marketing or about copywriting or about this, and I need to format it in a certain way. And so you get inside your own head. Whereas now I don't even think I do that. I just, okay, I want to talk about this topic. Okay, I will just start writing. Okay, so what does this topic have to do with me? How does it relate to me and my story? And I think I've just been doing this for such a long time now, teaching through storytelling, that naturally, as soon as I start to think about my own story, my own journey, I will then relate it back to my clients, to how it can help them, to the people that are reading or listening or watching. And naturally it will turn into, here is some value, here is some information while I'm sharing my story. And I feel like when I'm saying this, I feel like you kind of have to see it. You have to see something that I've written, and then it will kind of make sense. And like, oh yeah, she does it kind of seamlessly. Like you don't even realize that she's like teaching you something until because you're just like sucked in a little bit into the story of like, whoa, like she went through this, like this resonates. I went through something similar. Oh wow, like okay, now she's come out on the other side of this. This is what she's learned. These are her takeaways. This is what she recommends. And boom, you've got it, and it's beautiful. And I love that it's become, this skill. It's taken a bit of practice, but the more that I do it now, it's become a skill that I feel like I've mastered. So I think if you're just starting out and it's feeling uncomfortable, just know that the more that you do it, it will help. The other thing I will say is, the more that you have someone guiding you and helping you with this process, the better. And that's why, like, I love what you do, Reme, with just helping people actually find that story and find a way to tell that story. And you talk so much about the importance of stories. And I think that I thought, wow, this is so amazing. I mean, I found you after I had already started this journey, but I wish I had found you, especially during that year of imposter syndrome. I wish I had found you and you had told me, like, but wait, you can share your story and it can have such a beautiful impact. And your story is going to be what makes you stand out and makes you unique. And you definitely can find a way to match your story with what you want to do. And I think that that would have saved me so much time to actually have found you before, and to have actually work with you, and to say, like, because you do workshops and the content that you put out, it's just amazing. If you guys haven't checked out Reme's content, it's so incredible. It's so full of value that I read it and I'm like, wow, that hits home because I think that it's so important that we actually look at how much impact we can have when we share our stories.
Thank you. Thank you for your kind words. And yeah, that's also a reason why I started this podcast. I want to bring people that just has go through this journey and can tell their experiences and how every story can resonate with someone and is powerful and is worth telling. So that's something that I'm really passionate about, because some people they might think that they need a Hollywood style kind of story to be worth of telling, and it's not like that. We are humans and we connect through story. As you mentioned, your ancestors and your way of sharing stories and learning through them is something that yeah we should learn from that too.
Yes,
So thank
I
you.
love that.
I want to bring back because you mentioned that you realize that you can work with daughters of immigrants after taking action. So was through in working with several people and then getting to realize, whoa, look at this. I am connecting with several of these people. I can help them in a more deeper way. How was that process?
So that process has been a bit of an evolution again, in that I've worked with a lot of different people, and I think that that's been one of the things that's been the most helpful to me as an entrepreneur, is learning that I can't do everything by myself. And I think that this definitely is something that I've learned as the daughter of immigrant parents, as the eldest daughter as well. I think I grew up having to be an adult from a very young age and do everything on my own. My parents didn't speak English, and so I had to be the translator, the interpreter, and figure everything out, like college applications and financial aid and grades and all the activities that you need to even get into a college, and then navigating college and then the corporate world on my own. I was so used to doing everything on my own. And then I was the first person in my family to move abroad and start a business. And I realized, like, okay, this is just one more challenge, one more challenge. I guess I can also do this on my own. But then at some point, I realized, I think during that first year of being in business, I realized, like, wow, but I can learn so much more. And it almost seems like a shortcut to even have an hour call with a coach or even with another colleague or a mentor. I can learn so much in that 1 hour instead of spending hours and hours and days and weeks trying to teach myself something that maybe is not even worth my time, and instead someone in that 1 hour call can say, oh no, I learned that you can do it this. I learned about this tool or about this resource, or, this was really helpful for me. And so now I take as many of those calls as I can, whether it's a call with my own therapist, with my own coach, with another colleague. I join like co-working sessions, I go to events, but I'm trying to have more of those conversations because I realize we can't do this alone. And I think that working, especially with the coach, has been really helpful for me in actually realizing what parts of my story I can tell that will actually make me the most money. And so that's
Mm,
one thing. I mean, she's a finance coach, she's a business coach, but one thing that I loved about our work together was actually, working on that money mindset, working on those beliefs and looking at how much of that has shaped the way that I think about business. And so even what I share and what I don't share, and how I kind of have calls to action and how I invite people to work with me. These are all things that I had to work on. And so, yeah, because she said, well, you're sharing a lot of your stories, but you're not you're not selling, you're not closing. There's no purpose, I guess, behind it. And you're just kind of expecting people to know or to want to work with you or to know that they can work with you without you actually inviting them to work with you, without you actually telling them that you're taking new clients, without actually telling them that you're booking speaking engagements. So she said, people sometimes need to know that. And it's so interesting because now even talking to friends, sometimes they're like, oh, I didn't know that you were accepting new clients. Like I just assumed that you were full. I just kind of assumed all therapists were really like booked out. And I said, oh, wow. So do you think I need to put even more posts, saying that I'm accepting clients? And she's like, oh, yeah, I think you should even like pin a post, like if you are accepting clients and when you're not, like unpin it and that kind of thing. And I was like, wow, like, and it's these kinds of things that if you don't do that work with a coach, sometimes you just don't know. And there's just so much that you can learn from having that personalized one-on-one attention with someone who really knows about these things, knows about how to story sell. Because that was one word that I learned that I was like, wow, that is amazing. Like, so you can sell without actually selling. You can sell by telling your story. And so that's one thing that, if anything, I've gotten, and I wouldn't say like I'm a pro or an expert. I'm still working on it because selling, I think, is still something that is a bit uncomfortable for me, that it's something that I'm not used to, that still feels a bit like, ugh. But when I reframe it and think of, no, I'm wanting to help this person, then I'm like, okay, well, I want to help as many people as possible. So let's do it. And how do I do that? I do it by sharing my story, and whatever story. I have so many different stories that are now my story selling stories, and I'll share different parts of my story that I know will help people with whatever it is that they're struggling with. Some people, they say, oh, I can't invest right now, or they don't even have that term um in their vocabulary yet. I don't think I used to either. I would just say that, oh, that's too expensive about everything. Whereas now I've shifted it to, now I say, oh, okay, I don't know if I'm ready to invest yet. And that's so different and that's so powerful because you see it that it's an investment, whether it's an investment in your mental health, it's an investment in your professional or personal development, whatever it is. But we're investing our time and energy. And now that I've had that shift, I'm like, okay. And now I use the word yet. So I don't say
Mm.
it's too expensive and boom, and I just close the door and close the gate on myself and on opportunities and on that person who's probably got so much knowledge to share with me. Now I just say, not yet. And so I give it some thought. And if I'm not ready yet, and I just say, okay, not yet, but I'm going to like bookmark you because I really like what you're doing. I really want to work with you. So it's about that, and it's about like being able to reflect on why is it that I'm not ready yet? Like, does this actually make sense for me? How much of it is, just my money blocks stopping me from investing right now? And how much of it is actually like, okay, no, I think it is a smarter decision to wait a bit. And so actually like taking that and being able to say like, okay, and so sometimes even sharing that story, for example, and stories about my own money mindset journey and some of the blocks that I am working through or have worked through or whatever you want to call it, that has been helpful in helping clients like, oh, okay, so it's not just me, or like, I hadn't thought about it that way, or, so yeah, it's been really powerful.
Yeah, thank you for sharing because it's such a powerful shift in the mindset. And yeah, I'm sure by you sharing it, it's inspiring and resonating with people listening to us. Especially also that part of being strategic when sharing your story, because yeah, stories are helpful for teaching and for inspiring others, but we as a business owners having stories as a asset for our businesses and how we use them in a way that is highlighting the benefits of working with us, especially because our combination of personality, knowledge, and experience, expertise. But yeah, it's highlighting that, illustrating that benefits, and being strategic in which stories you are sharing based on the audience that you want to reach out, based on the offerings that you have now. So being thoughtful and intentional about which pieces of your story are you sharing in which moment. That's really interesting, and I love that you bring that up too.
Yeah.
um what would you say were some unexpected challenges that you faced when you started sharing your stories?
I would say some unexpected challenges were probably just feeling a bit uncomfortable with sharing my story. And it definitely didn't come with ease in the beginning. And I did kind of wonder, like, oh, am I ready to share this? Am I sharing too much? And even, I mean, even just a few months ago, I actually had someone tell me that they listened to a podcast episode and they thought it was too much storytelling. And they're like, oh, well, you went off on these tangents and you told this really long story. And they said, oh, well, there was some value in there, but I don't know. And it's just so interesting that at first I kind of took that, like, oh, wow, okay, so maybe I should stop doing that. But then when I actually reflected and really thought about that conversation that I had with this person, I realized that they just, they're coming from a very different point of view, and that they think that therapists should be these professionals and these experts, and that they should only share information and data. And so they were thinking that this mental health podcast would be like any other mental health podcast without the stories or without anything, and that I would just give statistics and knowledge and that kind of thing. And so while they did find that, and that's what they said, like, oh, but there were some parts that I found really interesting and I didn't know this and that, but those were the only things that they picked out. But it's also interesting that they still, even like, I think it was like a week or 2 weeks later that after they had listened to the episode that we were having this conversation, I was like, but you still remember those specific, even statistics and details. And I was like, maybe it's because I was storytelling that you actually remember that. If I had just been giving you so much cold, raw information and data, would you still have remembered that? I don't know. But either way, I thought, and this is what I also explained to her. This is someone who comes from a country where there isn't any stigma around therapy. And I think that
Mhm.
that's amazing and that's beautiful. Unfortunately, I know that for women of color who are daughters of immigrants and the population that I work with and that I serve, I know that there is a lot of stigma in those communities. And so for me, it is about destigmatizing therapy, and I often do that through storytelling because I want to make sure that it feels more real. And so yeah, I might share some funny story about something that happened to me or something, just to make sure that they see me as a person, as someone who's relatable, of like, oh, I struggled with this, and here, I learned about this. And so I'm sharing information while I'm sharing my stories, and I think that that's actually what's sticking with people. But it is, sometimes a bit hard and a bit uncomfortable to hear, that, oh, that's not what people wanted. But I think, okay, well, you know what, like I'm gonna take some of that, and I'm gonna not take some of that. And so yeah, it is sometimes, I think you will get people, I still get people telling me that I should change my niche, and I get, different feedback all the time. And so yeah, I take some things and I don't take other things. But yeah, sometimes I guess one of the challenges is that people, will say that I'm maybe storytelling a bit too much, or that I'm talking too much or for too long, or that they're getting bored or whatever. And yeah, who knows? Maybe it's just that they're not used to therapists doing this kind of thing, and something in them is uncomfortable by it, or thinking that it's somehow wrong or shouldn't be done. But I guess that's the whole point of being a cycle breaker, and of doing something different, like decolonizing therapy, destigmatizing therapy, is that we have to do things differently. That's kind of the whole point. So
Mm,
yeah, I thought
yeah.
I'd share that.
And congrats on your work. I think that is really, really valuable. And I love how you really understand your audience. And that's the base, because maybe that person is in a different culture, they have a different mindset, and they don't really understand the background of the people that you are trying to reach out, and help
Exactly.
them. They need a different journey, and you know that deeply, that you can bring stories that will help them to go through that, together with you, you are the guide, so you know which pieces of the stories will help them in a deeper way. So I love how that storytelling is coming from this deep understanding of the people that you want to help.
Yes, exactly. And I think that that's been a really important lesson to learn, is who I serve, and to just be confident in that this is what's going to resonate. This is probably what they're going to want, because I know that I even struggle to read the books that are just very much about the content and about the data. And I know that at the end of a long day of working with clients, that's not what I want to read. I don't want to read a book about trauma if it's just going to be giving me lots of statistics. But I will read a book that tells a story, and that actually follows a narrative. And whether it's fiction or nonfiction, like I just recently read a really good memoir that was about mental health, that was about trauma, that was about daughters of immigrants and their experience. And I was like, wow, that story. And I know because I joined the author chat, and I was in a room with other daughters of immigrants who also said that story, like that, it resonated, and it's become a bestseller for a reason, because she was sharing about mental health, about her own journey. She was even, like, same as me, sharing different tips and tools and resources that have been helpful for her in her own healing journey, but she's doing it while she's telling a story. And
Mm.
so it was beautiful, because now people remember those things. They remember those resources. They're looking into that now, and they're getting that help that they need because that story resonated. So I think, yes, you're right. Knowing your audience, so important.
Mm, yeah. Um, One almost last question. What part of your personal brand story surprises people the most?
Oh, I don't know. I feel like I've had so many different lives that there's probably so many different things that have probably surprised people. I think people are pretty surprised to find out that I am a migrant myself. I share so much about being the daughter of immigrant parents that sometimes I feel like people are like, "Oh, you live in Australia? Oh, okay." And I think I always say, like, I have one foot in the US and one foot in Australia, and like an extra toe in other countries as well. And so I actually don't share that much about my own journey as an immigrant here. But I am actually wanting to share a bit more of that because I've realized that, yes, my content and my stories can resonate a lot with the daughters of immigrant parents. But I'm also hearing from friends and from people that follow me who are migrants themselves in another country that they can relate to a lot of the content that I'm putting out for daughters of immigrants and the grief and a lot of things. And so I'm like, wow, that's so interesting. And I said, and you know what? It's just kind of feeling right that I'm sharing more about my own journey being a migrant as well. So, but yeah, sometimes I think that surprises people that I am a migrant myself, and I don't really talk about that and don't introduce myself as a migrant or anything. So, but yes, I do. I've lived abroad for about 5 years, and that has been, definitely something that's shaped my worldviews and has been a beautiful, sometimes difficult part of my journey. But yeah, that is one of the things.
Mm. And I love how in your story that could be like a bridge between being a
Yeah,
daughter and now being in the other side of the,
yeah,
like being the one doing that move, and how,
exactly.
yeah, that's a powerful story, like connecting those
Hmm.
thoughts and experiences. So yeah, thank you for bringing it up. Okay, so this conversation has been lovely. We could continue, but let's keep it like here. How can people find out more about you and what you do and working with you?
Yeah, sure. So the name of my brand is called Global Citizen Therapy, and you can find me across all social media channels under the same handle at Global Citizen Therapy. My website is globalcitizentherapy.com. You can also shoot me an email at info@globalcitizentherapy.com. Check out the Global Citizen Therapy podcast. It's all pretty easy. And I say that we are global citizens because I've always struggled as someone who's felt like she wasn't from here or from there. And now being a migrant myself, I just always thought, like, wouldn't it be beautiful if we could all just be global citizens, if there weren't any borders? So if you're a daughter of immigrants, if you're a migrant yourself, if you're a third culture kid, if any of this has resonated with you, definitely you're going to want to follow me, check out the podcast, check out some of the things I'm doing. You can book a consultation call with me. I am accepting new clients at the moment. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
Thank you. And I love the name. I love the brand. I love the work that you do. So important, so valuable. And
Mhm.
thank you for being here, for sharing your behind the scenes of how you shape your stories and your experience. So thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
It's been amazing. Thanks for having me, Reme.
See you soon. Thanks for tuning in to Who Cares About My Story, the podcast on how sharing your personal brand story can impact your business. If you found this episode valuable, consider subscribing or leaving a review. Your feedback means a lot. Did something resonate with you today? Please share your thoughts on the podcast platform or on your socials. I would love to hear from you and give you a shout out. Just tag me on Instagram at Reme Mancera. I can't wait for you to meet our next guest. Until then, remember, your story is relevant and worth telling.